Welcome to HeART with Monica C. Guidry. I am so glad you decided to join us. It's been a long time, guys, like friends. It's been some months, but I'm back and better than ever. Hopefully you guys have been listening to all of the old podcasts that I've had. I think the last one that I did was on maybe Reset. I don't know, but you go back and you listen and let me know what it was. But I'm so glad that you joined me today. I have an amazing guest on my show. I'm going to introduce her in a moment, but I want to kind of bring you guys into the space of where I've been. So today's show is about ambiguous loss. And I actually did not even know that that was an actual term. And you're going to see why here in a moment, because we've all have walked through this at some point in our lives, I'm pretty sure. And once I start defining this, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I actually have. I just didn't know that it had a term. So me personally, I like to bring people into my space. One of the things that God has gifted me with is the ability to be vulnerable at the appropriate times, the ability to be authentic all the time. And so what I'm going to be sharing with you is something that I have walked through, am currently going through, and am learning along the way. And I want to bring you into that space because I posted something the other day on both of my social media handles, and it went wild. Like a lot of people just really have inboxed me, mostly because it's sort of a private conversation that you would have like with a girlfriend. It's not something that you want others to be privy to because it is sensitive in nature. And that is about ambiguous loss. Now, ambiguous loss is something, I'm going to pull up the proper term here, the definition that I came across. And it's this: ambiguous loss is when it happens when you're grieving someone who is still living, someone or something. It's different than the grief you experience when someone you love dies. That kind of grief is finite, it's certain, right? And there's no question you should feel pain. Ambiguous loss happens when something or someone profoundly changes or disappears. A person feels torn between hope things will return to normal and the looming sense that life as they knew it is fading away like a Polaroid developing in reverse. That part right there got me. It's like a Polaroid picture developing in reverse. So for me, I'm going to talk about ambiguous loss in terms of friendship. Friendship is huge to me. Anyone that knows me knows that friendship is a big thing. But I've not always been a vulnerable person. Now, I just let you know that I am vulnerable now, but let me get to how that came to be. I would always tell God, like, in my life, I've been surrounded by people who have loved me. I have amazing friends. So the friends that are listening to this, I need you guys to know that this is not a slight against you at all. But there have been times in my life when I would pray and ask the Lord to send me someone that I could be vulnerable with, that I can let my hair down with, that I could be ratchet and godly and crazy all at the same time without any second thought, that I could just be this. And I did not have that person in my life that I felt that I could divulge my complete self with outside of my husband. And even with that, my husband is my husband. He's a man. So there's some things that I can't share with him, or I'm a little cautious with sharing with him because he's a man. But so I asked the Lord from the time that I was 20 years old to send me a friend that could be this person. And he did. And when that happened, it was so organic. It was as if, the first time us meeting and talking, we talked on the phone for hours. Now, mind you, I hate talking on the phone, y'all. I hate it. I hate talking on the phone. I don't want to be near a phone. The best type of communication is text me. But this person, the very first conversation that we had, we talked for 3 hours. And then every day after that, we would talk to each other every day on the phone. This was the person that I literally have divulged everything to. I've shared, the only person that I've shared pretty much every aspect of my life they know, and I know just about every aspect of their lives. So it was a give and take when it came to that. Now, we've had our bumps in the road because we are not the same person. Our personalities are very different, but for whatever reason, it worked. And there was a period in our relationship where I would just be like, it was a little lopsided. There was more give and take, but that's what happens in some friendships. There's a give and take, and someone's usually given a little bit more than the other, and all of that, those interworkings. There was a period though when we had to take a break. There was time and space that we needed to create, because I think there was like some codependency that was happening that wasn't healthy. And so that break we took, and it was necessary. At the time, I didn't know how necessary that it was. But when there was the coming back together, that's when it felt like things are still a little off. Things are not like they were. Granted, we're working now. We can't talk on the phone every day. We can't have that. However, I miss my friend. Like, the checking in wasn't happening. The, the occasional, what are you doing right now? Let's go, do this, wasn't happening. There was a disconnect. And I am a connection type of person. I am a filler. I'm extremely discerning, and I knew something was off. So before we had this break, we had a major conversation about feeling like there was this disconnect, and the person was just like, no, it's nothing, just life is different now, I'm working, you're working, like all these kind of excuses, and it just still didn't feel right. So fast forward, the coming back together again, it just felt off. And I was just like, okay, something's happening here, but I can't put my finger on it. I need to know what's going on. So I had a final conversation, and the conversation went like this. We're two different people. We're both working now. I don't have the capacity like I used to be able to nurture a friendship. I can do better with checking in, but like talking on the phone every day, I'm not an everyday type of person. I tried that out. It just doesn't, I'm not that kind of person. And it kind of hit me because I'm an overcoming, dealing with rejection and abandonment. So I'm in recovery from that. So what I had to do with that information was to not take it on as I'm being rejected or being abandoned, which this person knows that I have been, and that I'm overcoming that. So I looked and I said, you do realize that what you're saying is that you've tried me out as if you bought me from the store, and then you're taking me back to the store. You're returning me back to the store. And this person was just like, no, I'm not saying it like that. But there was really no explanation to try to explain what you're trying to say. Basically, what you need from me as a friend, I can't give. But the thing about it is you can, because I'm witnessing you nurturing new friendships in front of me. Mm-hmm. And so that's the part that's like, it stings a little bit, because it's like, you're saying this to me, and yet I get to witness you nurturing other friendships and other things. So as I'm going through the process of healing from rejection and abandonment, I am realizing triggers and traumas and different things, like where this stuff is stemming from, and trying not to take things necessarily personally. But what I thought that I was experiencing, when I thought that I was experiencing healing, in all actuality, I was going through grief. I was grieving. I was going through the grieving process. Times where I would wake up in the middle of the night and cry over this friendship that was no longer. Now, this person still thinks that we're still friends, but for me, what was is no longer, and I'm grieving that. And I'm angry, and there's shame, because first of all, I don't give my heart to anybody, except for my husband. Okay. And so I feel shame around the fact, like, why am I feeling this? I feel shame because some friends that are close to me that knows about this situation, they kind of shame me a little bit. Like, why this person isn't all, like what? And then they question my relationship with them. Like, well, don't you feel like that whole thing? So bringing you all into the space that I am right now is that, sharing this with you, I want you to know that those that have commented on my posts, that you're not alone, that, yes, even me, I have my own situations that I'm maneuvering through and learning. And so that's why I have my guest on here, who is an expert. Her name is Latasha Washington, who is a MDiv, which is a Master of Divinity. She has an MACC, which is a Master in Clinical Counseling. And she is also an LPC, which is a Licensed Professional Counselor. Can you please welcome to HeART, Latasha D. Washington. How are you doing? I'm so glad you're here.
Good. This is a good topic. Oh my goodness.
Now, we were sharing off the recording that this is actually something that you talk to your clients about, but you didn't know that it had a definition.
Said ambiguous loss. This is yes. This is it. I would just always talk about grief and how grief is not just, oh, this person died. They're no longer here. I can no longer talk to them, spend time with them. Like, because grief in that way, it's like, that's cool. I get that. I understand that. I can wrap my mind around it. They are not here because they have gone on. Now, what happens when I tell my clients, let's change the definition. Grief is a loss. Because I had this conversation so many times during the pandemic and right after, because people were losing their homes, they were losing their jobs. Students were losing the fact that they could go to school. I had high schoolers crying because they didn't have a homecoming, a prom, graduation.
All the major things.
Yeah. And I'm like, you can grieve those things because those are things that you lost. And they're like, now you done messed up, my whole existence because you've given me another reason. Another thing that I talk about as loss is divorce. Even if the divorce is through domestic violence or intimate partner violence, at some point you had dreams about what you thought this was going to be.
Yep.
You have to grieve those dreams. You have to grieve what you thought this relationship was going to be. You're going to have to grieve that, no, we're not growing old together. And in that sense, talking to one of my kid clients in a session, and, we're talking about grieving and, how mom and dad aren't together anymore, been acting out a little bit. So we talked about that, working through that. And she's like, well, that's stupid, Miss Tasha, because how am I supposed to grieve him? And he's still alive. That's kind of hard. Like he just lives out. He just don't live with us. Like he's not dead.
Right.
How am I supposed to grieve losing my dad when he's still here? And I said, like, oh, now
because if you think about it, that's the hard part. With death, it's finite. We're never going to see that person again. But with ambiguous loss, it's like, yo, you're in my face. I see you all the time. So how do you grieve something that is still present? And speaking about grief, it's cycles, right? Like sometimes grief has a cycle. So can you talk about the cycles?
Grief is crazy. Grief does what it wants to do. Like it does what it wants to do when it wants to do it. You can literally be fine on Monday. Then Tuesday, you like, oh, I can't even believe this happened. You're angry. Like, why would he even leave me? I didn't even do anything wrong. Then Wednesday, you crying. What did I do? Why ain't he here? I mean, like you just going through. Then Thursday, you're completely numb. You don't care, whatever. And then Friday, you just like happy again. Like it comes and it takes you. It's so grief sometimes can be selfish. But at the same time, it's like grief is like, you're going to have to feel me to be healed. Grief is like, I will not be ignored.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something. And you talked about the cycles. I'm fine. I'm numb. I'm sad. I'm like all these things. Like I legit was cool. Yesterday was Sunday. Worship was amazing. And I hadn't had a bout of, just being sad or anything like that. And I woke up today, went on IG and saw a post that the incredible Christina Kane posted. And she posted, I'm going to see if I can pull up what she posted. She posted about, She said, I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read some of it. She said, my heart is tender towards those of you who are hurting because of a lost friendship tonight. Some of you are wondering what happened. Everything seemed totally normal, and suddenly, without cause, without explanation, you were ghosted. You have replayed conversations. Every conversation went through every text thread over and over, and you can't think of a reason why you have been rejected and abandoned. And then at the very, very bottom, it just says, you've been second guessing yourself, losing sleep, and are on the verge of losing heart. Don't let the enemy steal your peace, joy, courage, confidence. If you've done all you can, trust God and keep moving. So yes, the post was cool. You know, it was like, yes, those are touching. That's exactly what I'm going through. But what triggered me was the person that abandoned me liked it, liked the post. Because, you know, you can see who, you know, you can see all the people that like this post. And I thought to myself, if you have in the past been hurt like this, or if you are currently being hurt like this, why the heck would you do that to me? And so that triggered me, and it put me in a spiral today. So what?
This is another thing that has been showing up in my client sessions lately too. Adult friendships.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, we've been friends since the 5th grade. That's my best friend. And like, oh, I mean, like, that's my girl. And I tell them, well, she been doing stuff since the 5th grade you ain't like. She was messy in the 5th grade. You just, you know, we called it messy in the 5th grade.
Right.
You know, like in the 7th grade when she stole your boyfriend. Yeah, she did that. You know how she talks to you when she only needs stuff. She's still doing that. She borrowing money and don't, like, these traits have been there.
Like red flags type of situation.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
I tell people, and as adults, because it's like we don't know how to make friends, like we don't know how to go out and start over. It's like, I'm gonna keep the ones I have, regardless. And I'm like, well, just because you have a history with a person doesn't mean you should have a future with them. Like, and this is what I'm seeing with God is that He's doing a lot of pruning in this season. So the people you shouldn't have been friends with for however long you've been friends with them, since you can't remove them, let me go ahead and remove them for you.
Wow. So how do you help people maneuver through that? Like the letting go, the part where it's like, because when you let go, that's a loss. You're losing what you had. So how do people cope with that? Because what I'm finding is there are a lot of women, like you said, they're commenting on my post, they're talking about me too, I've experienced this. So how do you get, what tools do you give to someone that's going through something like this?
And honestly, I tell my clients a lot of times, like, I've already gone through something similar.
Ooh, you have?
Before I'm able to even, you know, talk to you about it. And it happened to me. And I remember, like, because people that have really good hearts, it's like, it's hard for you to think that somebody would do this to you.
Say that part again.
No,
say it again.
That's not what they're doing.
Say it again.
Like, it's so hard. And especially dealing with abandonment, rejection, people pleasing. Like, if you're healing from those things, if you're healing from trauma, neglect, like that kind of stuff, it's like, there's no way. Like, I'm never causing nobody the pain that I felt. Well, there's no way this person is intentionally doing this to me. And I tell you, one day the Holy Spirit was like, yeah, she is. And I was like, well, like, so I'm running through the second guessing, the asking, I mean, conversations. Like, when we went to dinner, did I say something? Like, did I bring up something? Did I owe her money? No, because I ain't borrowing no money. Like, literally going through the checklist. And when I tell you, I was like, slow the reel down. Because I look at things, it's like a movie in my head. So he's like, just slow it down a little bit. And then the bits of conversation, the things she would say to me would come back. Like, oh, that was pretty rude, or she didn't mean that like that. You know, just kind of jabs, little passive aggressive type things here and there. It's like, whoa. how it was used, or how she used my reputation, or she used my name to get her name further. Like, it was a lot. And then at the end of it, God was just like, I'm in rooms with her that you're not in. So you don't know what she's saying and doing, but I do. Trust me that this is not a friendship. That tore me up. I'm sitting in the driveway just crying. I couldn't even get out the car.
Wow.
It's like, well, I didn't do anything. I'm crying. Like, what did I do?
Yeah. Yeah. So how do
Literally
you
nothing.
go ahead?
And I had, number one, you got to feel it.
That's a good one.
And I know that sounds so cliche, because the first thing I want to do is just get out the car and be like, forget her then. I mean, you want to do you, sis. Like, just what. But I was like, woo. I'm not a choir. Like, I don't, catch me in worship. Now, listen, I'll be tore up in worship. But like, it was like, wait a minute. This hurts. I feel disappointed. I feel angry.
Yeah.
Feel taken advantage of. It's like identifying what you're feeling.
That's good. Identifying what you're feeling.
Self-aware.
So guys, grab your notebooks. Look, I got my notebook. Grab your notebook. So what she's saying is, the first thing that you got to do, you got to feel what you're feeling and identify those feelings.
Because you need to know how you're feeling, because it helps you identify your triggers.
Ooh.
So, like, social media is forever going to be a trigger for everybody if you don't do it right. So, like you said, going on social media, you like my post, but this post has to do with what you did to me, but you gonna like it, like you didn't do. So
no, here's the thing. It wasn't my post that she liked. It was we follow the same influencer. So she liked the post that the influencer put out there, not my actual.
So you ain't even influenced from the like you. So it's hold on. I thought I was all right. Wait a minute.
I'm like, so
feeling?
Girl. Yeah. So I think, okay, so if you're saying to do this, I think in that moment, if I had to, using the tools that you're giving me right now or giving to the audience, if I was to identify how I was feeling, okay, so if I identify those feelings, I was feeling angry in that moment and sad in that moment. And then to identify my triggers, I think what triggered me was the fact that either someone was creating her the same pain that she created to me. Okay. And so, like, how could you let what someone did to you, then you turn around and do the same thing to me? Like, I don't know if I'm doing that right, but
indignation.
Indignation.
Where it's just like, how dare you?
Okay. Yeah.
How dare you? Because now all right, maybe I need to snooze this. Maybe I need to unfollow, unfriend, because if seeing the fact that she just liked something set me down this path, like, I got to the point I could not see the girl's name.
Ooh, yeah.
I said, that's telling me I need to, like, literally, no. Yeah. So it's identifying the feeling. That's then good. You're able to identify the trigger, because when the feeling comes back, it's like, oh, this is what it's connected to.
That's good. Okay, so then we got that. And then what's another thing would you say? Because we might have to do a part 2 on this, because this is some juicy stuff. We got a little under 10 minutes. So what would be the next thing? So we said identify the feelings so that we can understand the triggers.
Then redefining your world without them.
Ooh.
What does it look like when they no longer have the position they have? And that also forgiveness can play a role in that as well. Because now that I think about it, I've had one of my specialties is spiritual abuse. And now that I think about it, that's an ambiguous loss as well. Because if you're getting church hurt and you feel like the body of Christ has hurt you, it's not there. Churches are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
And if you decide to join another church,
you just taking all of that with you.
Exactly.
And so the first thing that someone does in that church is going to trigger you.
Yep.
And then they're put in the same boat as everybody else.
Yep. And I'm thinking about having to forgive. I remember even talking to my mom. I had to forgive a pastor for something he did. And I'm like, what you mean you want me to forgive him, Lord? Like, you know, this is your man of God. This is your, like, this is you, people. And it was like the forgiveness came. And I remember talking to my mom and she said something like, no, it sounds like you're holding a grudge. You can't be a Christian and hold a grudge. I said, there's a difference between holding a grudge and having a boundary. And I'm like, I can forgive him, but it doesn't mean he has to stay in the same position he had in my life.
Wow.
You don't get to be my pastor anymore.
That's
but now
so
it's
good.
redefining what my new reality looks like without this person as my pastor. Because you know, you can have that friend, like she's the first person you text when something good happened, or something bad happened, or something crazy. You're girl, and you go to your phone. Same thing when the person passes.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I find myself doing that. It's like, yo, they would be the first person that I would want to call, but I don't have that anymore. I don't want to make someone in my life that now, because that's like they're a rebound. It's like, it's unfair. Yep. It's completely unfair. And so it's like, well, what do I do with this? Where do I put this?
I've had people, some of my clients, I've had them like email me or send me a text as they're healing, or have them keep a journal or notes in their phone.
Yeah. Journaling is good. It is such good therapy. Ooh.
And some people don't like to write, so I have them do voice journals. So I use voice memos. And sometimes I have them do like photography journals, where they'll like take a picture of either what triggered them or what triggered the thought, the memory, and then they send the picture to me. So then in session, we're able to talk about the picture.
Yeah, I like that. So that could be another part of healing during this grieving process.
Healing and coping skills. The coping skills help you because they redirect you to something healthy.
Yes, I like that. So what we have so far is feel what you're feeling. And then part 2 of that would be so that you can identify your triggers. And then you have to redefine what your world would look like with them not in it, with the role that they had before. And then the 4th thing I have is journaling. Is there anything else you want to add to some of those things with how to grieve or when you're going through ambiguous loss?
Honestly, invite God into it.
Love it.
I mean, I tell my clients, invite God into therapy, because number one, you're gonna need them, because all your stuff about to come out, like all your everything, everything you forgot. So it's inviting God into this mourning period. Yeah. So because he already knows, like, you're hurting. And a lot of times, because you brought up the word codependent, we place unrealistic expectations on human beings. Like, we're pouring more into human beings and sharing our worries, our cares, our fears. And those things we should be casting upon the Lord. And we're not doing that because this is my girl, so I'm gonna always talk to her. But when she leaves, who's still there? Yeah. So it's also making sure you have a healthy relationship with God, because you don't want to make another human being your idol. Because once again, how I said pruning, God will remove anything that's taken his place. Yeah, he will. Because he's not gonna let Sister Girl be your God. And won't. And because he already knows what's gonna happen. What's interesting about all of this, and what's not confusing, because God is not the author of confusion. I remember the first time we had one of our major arguments, and I was like, oh God, I'm not doing this. I ain't got to do this, like, be in this friendship. And he said, but you can't leave. You can't walk away from this friendship. And so what's made me hold on so tight, that has made it even harder for this grieving process, is because hearing those words that the Lord told me.
It's like, so what do I do with that? Like, is the flesh part of me is like, I gotta let this go. But I guess ambiguous loss isn't necessarily letting go. It's just, I don't know. That's the part that I'm still trying
to. That's the ambiguous part.
Yeah.
Stuck in the middle. Stuck in the middle. Like, well, there's another question that I always ask people, especially if they're coming out of a relationship or something toxic. What need was this relationship meeting for you, even in its toxicity? Did you need to feel needed? Did you need to feel accepted? Did you need to feel a part of?
Oh, that's a really good question. Like a really good, yeah, that's like, yeah. Like what was the draw? What was the draw? I think it was just the comfort. It was just the comfort in knowing that, like, almost like I was protected and covered. Like, I know that sounds very, I don't know how it sounds, but that's the truth. Like,
when
man,
you think about the words you used,
comfort and protected.
Once again, that's the way you should feel with your relationship with
God.
So it's,
yeah. Like, and that's, so this whole part, this whole part of healing that I've been going through, it's interesting. Like, that's how I'm learning God in a different way. So every experience that I have with God, he's taken the deeper level that I go with God. I'm learning him in a new way. Yes. So this is a part of me learning God in a new way. Like, I'm learning him as a comforter. I've known him as the person, healer and provider, because I've gone through loss with, jobs and situations where I've needed provision. He did that. I was never supposed to have kids. He healed me. I know him in that area. But as far as comfort, I never had to know him in that area. Now I'm knowing him in that area. So it's like, I know that this is for my good. And those of you listening, it's for your good. It's just, what do you do with all of the feelings that you're feeling while you're maneuvering through? And I think you've done a really good job of those listening to give us some of these skills or these coping mechanisms to maneuver through the ambiguous part, the in-betweens, I think that's good. I think this deserves a part 2, because it's just so many other layers to grief, because this is a part of grief. And although it's not grieving, again, something or someone that is dead per se, they are still alive. It still is a part of grieving, and grieving is a cycle. And Latasha explained those different cycles. You want to take us through those cycles again of, like, the sadness,
and please know, I know we talk about stages of grief. They do not go in order. So it's not like I'm going to be angry today, then I'm going to be in denial tomorrow. Then there's going to be, what's the thing, like, where you're like trying to compromise or like bargaining. Like, they don't go in order. So it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not that. Like I said earlier, grief does what it wants when it wants.
That's a good note.
It will not be ignored.
Yeah. So on that level, I'm going to say this is a part 2 because I'm running out of time. So I want to say thank you to everyone that is tuning in, that has tuned in today. Stay tuned for part 2. And remember, a whole heart is a heart that's full of joy. It is a joyful heart. Until we speak again, until we see each other again, I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks, friends.